until one of us inevitably does the whole, I'm sorry. And then the other one would be like, I'm sorry too. Minasan, konnichiwa, squishy toke, yokoso. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about arguing. I think some of you are probably curious how Taro and I argue and what we argue about, and if any of it is to do with cultural differences and the fact that I'm British and he's Japanese. So I figured I'd tell you all about it today. So if you like videos like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. And let's get into it. Okay, so I'm going to start with things that we most commonly argue about. So I would say when we first got married, this was the time we probably argued, not a lot, but the most. And I think the reason for this is actually very simple. When you're married to someone who grew up in a completely different country to you, there are a lot of cultural differences, but you don't always know what they are. So sometimes we would argue about stuff and then we'd later realize this is just a cultural difference. It's not them being mean or doing anything wrong. So we mentioned this before in a previous video, but manners. This was something we argued about so much because I was convinced that Taro was being rude to me and he wasn't. It was just he didn't think that it was necessary to say please or thank you to someone that you're close to, and I felt that it was. So we argued about that a lot when we first got married. And then we just kind of got used to it, I suppose, because we realized that it was a cultural difference. The problem with that is we would argue about it. And I remember this, we'd argue about it a lot. And then one day when we weren't angry at each other, I thought, I'm gonna ask about this and try not to make it sound like I'm looking for an argument. So I remember asking like, hey, you know how I'm always telling you to say please or thank you? Why don't you do it? And then he explained, and then I felt a bit like an idiot. So yeah, a lot of times it was just the sake of it being a cultural difference, and then we kind of got over that. And then once we did, we argued so much less, and even now I would say we don't argue that often at all. But there are a few things that are almost guaranteed to start an argument. One of the things that affects me the most and that I would say causes an argument that I don't really like is shopping. I've mentioned on this channel before how much I love shopping and I buy a lot of stuff. It's not good, but it makes me happy. I find joy in it. And Taro wants to be minimalistic. So already there's a problem there, you know. He wants to live this minimalistic life and I like to buy things. So it's difficult. It's not a crazy argument. I would say we very rarely have like serious, crazy, really angry arguments. Usually when I buy something and he gets annoyed, it's a discussion that probably lasts about 15 minutes and then both of us get over it. So I'm more likely to buy stuff and clothes, whereas Taro is more likely to buy experiences like vacations and trips. So I think we both like to spoil ourselves just in very different ways, and my way does not match his minimalistic lifestyle. So the other thing we argue about is actually vacations. So Taro, like I said, he loves to spend money on vacations and holidays and things like that, experiences. Taro has a habit of booking trips and not telling me, which, you know, you may think is nice, but it's not because I don't have any say in what we do and what's planned, and I don't like that, and I think that's just my personality. I like to have an opinion about things and I like the idea of us planning stuff together because I think that's fun. You guys know we went to Hokkaido recently, but what you don't know is I did not plan this trip at all. So Taro was in this room, I was in a different room, and suddenly my phone was vibrating and I was like, what's going on? Who's messaging me? I look at my phone and I'm getting emails from the airline like, your flight for this date and this time has been booked, and I'm like, is this a scam? And then I walk into this room and I'm like, Taro, what's this? And he's like, oh yeah, I've booked us a trip. And he'd booked everything. He'd booked the flights, he'd booked the hotels, he planned what we were going to do. And I was just like, shocked. I was so amazed that he thought that this was a good idea. So I just kind of looked at him and went, do you not think it's weird that you just booked this and didn't even ask me? And I remember, and this is hilarious, I was so angry. Even the day we got there, so angry, because we had to get up really early for a flight that I did not choose to take. And then we had to walk quite far to get to this hotel, a hotel that I did not choose to book, right? So I'm angry and I'm like, oh, this is ridiculous, like not in a good mood at all. We get into the hotel and I'm like, okay, good choice, good choice, good choice. I like your choice of hotel. It's good. All right, fine, fine. And then we go to the Hakodate Botanical Gardens, which we filmed a video there, and I loved it. I was like, oh, this is so much fun, and I didn't choose any of this. So, you know, initially I was angry, and I was angry all the way until we actually got there. And in the end, I was so happy because he did such an amazing job in booking this trip, and it was a lot of fun. It was a really, really nice time. We have had really big arguments before, and the problem with Taro and I is we have almost the exact same personality. So the way that we deal with situations is very similar, and this is a problem because when we argue, neither one of us wants to back down. And this is when it gets like crazy, serious arguments. We would argue for a while and then we won't talk to each other and we'll sit in separate rooms in silence until one of us inevitably does the whole, I'm sorry. And then the other one would be like, I'm sorry too. Yeah, so, you know, it's pretty bad, but we're kind of on the same page in the way that we apologize. And sometimes our arguments are kind of funny. Like we look back on it and we're like, oh my God, did we really just argue about that? It's so ridiculous. But yeah, that's kind of how we operate. So the next thing I want to mention is crucial. This was kind of a turning point in our entire relationship. So I mentioned before that cultural differences were why we were arguing, and I think one of those differences was the fact that Taro wouldn't tell me how he was feeling. So if there was something bothering him, he would keep it to himself, try and solve it himself, or just try and, I guess, get over it by himself. So a lot of times I would know that something was wrong and something was bothering him, but I wouldn't know what it was. And then when I tried to get it out of him, it would cause an argument. And then eventually, and I feel like this is good advice for everyone, no matter who you're in a relationship with, you should always talk about things when you're both calm. So if it's a big problem and you argue about it, you should wait a couple of days till everybody's calm, and then you should talk about it when you're both calm. And that's what happened with us. So I knew this was a problem, and then when we were calm, we talked about it, and I would say, you know, if something's bothering you, I need you to tell me straight away, because especially if it's something that I've done, how can I learn from it if I don't know what the problem is? So ever since we did that, I would say now that I know what I've been doing wrong that's upsetting him, and he knows what he's been doing wrong that's upset me, we never then have to deal with those problems ever again. So now we rarely argue. I think arguing is horrible, but I think if you can resolve the thing that you're arguing about, your relationship is only going to get stronger. So yeah, we very rarely argue. Even when we argue, like I say, afterwards, it just feels good to know that we've talked about something and it's fixed and we probably never have to worry about it again. Okay, so that is the end of this video, you guys. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What would you think if your partner booked you a surprise trip? How would you deal with that? Please let me know, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!